Well, thank you all for joining us for this week's lunchtime chat. My name is Richard Chachiaish Peterson, and I serve as the president of Tlingit Haida. The weekly chats are hosted as an opportunity to share information with tribal citizens on Tlingit Haida's recent and upcoming activities, programs, and services. This week's lunchtime chat is focused on providing our tribal citizens with an update from the Tribal Emergency Operations Center and on our CARES Act Relief Fund projects and services. To get us started, we'll go ahead and have everyone introduce themselves. Teresa?
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you, President Pearson. My name is Teresa Belton, and I'm the tribe's Chief Financial Officer. I've worked with the tribe since 2002, and I grew up in the community of Hoonah.
Thank you. Jason?
Thank you, President Pearson. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jason Wilson. I'm Eagle Killer Whale. My Tlingit name is Ketchkaiich. I am the Public Safety Manager in charge of the Village Public Safety Officer Program, but I also get to carry the title of Incident Commander for our TOC.
Thank you, Jason. Melinda?
Hello, my name is Melinda Douglas. I'm the CARES Act Coordinator, and I'm originally from Metlakatla.
Thank you, Melinda. Corey?
Hi, my name is Corey Padron. I'm the Tribal Emergency Operations Administrator.
Great, thank you all, and go ahead and get us started. Teresa, as our Chief Financial Officer, are there any updates that you'd like to share with us regarding the CARES Act funding the tribe has received since you last provided an update in November?
Sure, thank you, President Peterson. The funding that we've gotten so far in between the time I last updated hasn't really changed a whole lot. We are continuing to apply for COVID-related grants, and we actually just got approved for an amendment for an additional $1 million from the SAMHSA, which is a Health and Social Services, Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration. And we just got notice of that yesterday. And so we are also tracking legislation with our general counsel for the bill that is going through Congress right now. But this list of funding is what I provided back in November, and SAMHSA is included in this.
Sorry, I think I got lost there. Teresa, the two largest sources of funding Tlingit Haida received are the BIA direct appropriation and then the CARES Act tribal government set-aside funding dispersed through the U.S. Treasury. What projects and services have been or are being completed under these two sources of funding?
Well, we had some major initiatives that we are working on, and some have been completed. Some of our larger projects are on the next slide. So one of the things that we did was we started up a Tribal Emergency Operations Center. And so to get that facility up and running and operational was a large project for us, and also our reentry transitional housing. And then also for our employees and the public and the citizens that we serve, we also wanted to make sure we had a safe place for us to continue to do business, and making sure that we are applying all of the suggested safety tips, so that we can make sure that we're all being safe when we return to the office. We did actually put a large portion of our resources to providing PPE, personal protective equipment to all the community councils in our service area, and then also the ones not in our service area, so that our tribal citizens could have equipment to protect themselves during this pandemic. We also had to make some upgrades to be able to continue to do business during this time. And so we had a lot of equipment that we had to purchase to get our employees to work from home. So most employees didn't have things like laptops or printers and things to necessary to do business. And so we had to scramble a little bit, and it's still an ongoing process, but to get all of our employees to be able to work from home. Also in that, we also had to update some of our technology. And so, you know, a lot of our computer programs and equipment are on site. And so getting to those things when you're working from home can be challenging. And so we moved to a cloud-based accounting software. We also made some updates to our client database, and so that we could continue to operate and provide services with those items. And then I think those are the very large projects. We've had some things here and there. We also had 3 assistance programs. One was for a household relief program, and the education relief program. Those were for tribal citizens, no matter where they lived in the United States. And then also we had a small business relief program. I think those are the major projects that we worked on with this funding.
So with the extension of the CARES Act funding deadline, has there been any change of course in the projects and services the tribe has initiated?
Well, we were quite relieved when the Treasury funding got extended a full calendar year. It's quite a major undertaking to spend that kind of money in just about 6 months. And so what we were able to do with that is extend out our individual relief programs out for another year until that funding is fully spent. And then we were also able to obligate all of our Treasury funding. And so that is fully obligated, and we'll be able to spend that through the end of 2021. And then with our BIA funding, we're actually able to use that funding to finalize some of the major projects that we've got going. You know, we were kind of in a crunch and to get all those done you know, by the deadline. And so we wanted to use our Treasury funding first because of course that had the closest deadline. And so we're able to actually finish those projects up in a timely manner and also assist our tribal citizens with those relief programs. And so we're really glad that we've got the extension and that we don't have to give back any funding, because one of the things about the Treasury funds is if you don't spend it, you have to send it back. And so we're grateful to have those funds for another year to complete all of our projects and spend the funding that we did receive.
Great. Teresa, a common question we receive is why have we not dispersed the CARES Act funds as a per capita distribution to tribal citizens? From the standpoint of understanding the terms and allowable use of the CARES Act funds, can you explain why we cannot disperse the CARES Act funds directly to all tribal citizens?
Yes, actually, it's because the guidelines specifically prohibit it. And so this is, as it's federal funding, it's pretty restricted. And so we can do some things with it, but the guidance specifically prohibits a per capita distribution. And since we have some flexibility, what we were able to do was build up those relief programs, and that's what we can do. But one of the requirements to do that is you have to assess individual need. So it's basically eligibility requirements are needed, and you know, financial information, income guidelines, things like that. Those are the kinds of restrictions that you have to go by to develop a program such as this. And also, you know, to be able to work within the guidelines that are put forward by these government agencies. And so we wanted to be able to provide relief to our tribal citizens, but within the guidelines that we are given, and so that we are doing it the right way.
Thank you. Turning to Jason and Corey, the Tribal Emergency Operations Center has proven to be an invaluable operation to help the tribe coordinate its response to the coronavirus pandemic. For those who are not familiar with the TEOC, can you give us an overview and talk about some of the projects the TEOC has completed to date?
Thank you, President Pearson. And Corey, please jump in as I'm probably going to miss some things here. But
Absolutely. Thanks, President.
just to kind of recap some things, the Tribal Emergency Operations Center, the TEOC, was formed really back when President Pearson had declared the emergency back in March of last year. We realized we were not prepared to deal with this last emergency that we were looking at and dealing with COVID-19. That was expanded as we realized we weren't ready. We also recognized there were many were also in a place of not being fully prepared to deal with this pandemic as well. That quickly expanded from there is how do we work with our tribal communities in that tribal response to COVID-19, but also looking at how do we address other issues that might come down the road, other events, emergencies that other communities might be facing, and how do we help with them on that. Our mission for the Tribal Emergency Operations Center is to safeguard the health and well-being of Tlingit Haida employees, tribal citizens, communities, and neighbors. And really that opens things up for us to be able to operate and take care of a large group of people. I do want to mention really quick that, as we get in through our talks, the Tribal Emergency Operations Center is made up of a very large team of people within Tlingit Haida Central Council, people outside of Central Council that have other jobs and have taken this job on as other duties as assigned. And without them, we would not be successful, as we will be able to talk a little bit later in some of these questions. Some of the things that we've been able to complete so far is those are familiar with the community coronavirus response kits to help our tribal communities kind of get some equipment in their communities, such as PPE items, masks, gloves, thermometers. We also responded to emergencies such as the Juneau flooding. So people don't know that we had some minor flooding within our Juneau facilities, teenage facilities, right before the Haynes landslide that we were able to kind of get up and running. It was one of our first tests other than dealing with COVID, I felt. So it was a good test and really prepared us in dealing with the Haynes landslide as well. And then recently we assisted with the Angoon water shortage. Corey?
Yeah, no, and that was, it was really nice to be there and be able to respond as quickly as we did. Let's see, we've also been working on securing grant funding. So we're working on building out the regional tribal communication system, which will tie all of the tribal communities together, as well as the VPSOs in those communities, because that's kind of lacking out in this region right now. We're drafting a really comprehensive return to work plan so that we can get back into the office again for those employees that need it in a safe and COVID mindful way. We already did the COVID-19 workplace exposure and response plan. As positives were coming up, we needed a way to identify it and then go in and clean up an area, disinfect it, and then get everybody back working again. So that was one of the first things we did. And then we're maintaining the TEOC here. We have our logistics warehouse that we keep stocked up with PPE and other supplies to help respond to COVID and other emergencies as they come up. And then we continue ordering that PPE for the other community councils and employees and departments within Tlingit Haida.
Great. So the TEOC stands ready to respond to all emergencies, not just to the coronavirus pandemic. The Haynes landslide disaster last fall was an example of this, along with the TEOC's recent response to Angoon's water shortage emergency that occurred last month. Can you talk about the role of the TEOC beyond the coronavirus pandemic?
Thank you, President Pearson. Again, Corey, just follow suit, and anything I leave out, please jump in. Really, when we look at the Tribal Emergency Operations Center and being able to respond to emergencies, the biggest thing that we've learned so far, which is a huge learning curve for us, is this is an area that's totally new to us in trying to operate. Really is establishing connections both within the communities that we're serving, as well as fellow partners that will help assist in responding to these emergencies. Looking at response to Haynes, really this was a quick response in that we were notified of the event. It was a couple hours later that we enacted our TOC and had to get a meeting to determine what the needs might be for the community. We looked at the addressing, do they want our assistance? And then going into the community, what was our objectives in the community, working with our partners there, the Chukka Indian Association. We quickly responded with them, working with them to make sure that anything that they're wanting to achieve, we were there to assist with. Corey?
Yeah, and all those, having experienced those and all the preparedness actions that we've taken with the coronavirus, really has made us see, the need for that advanced planning. So small community emergency response plans, emergency response guides for all of our departments, continuity of operation plans. All of these are things that the TEOC will be working with beyond the coronavirus, as well as we've had, like today, numerous earthquakes that have been fairly far away, but do have the potential to reach out and touch us. And they may be things that most people just don't follow on a daily basis, but that's kind of our job at the TEOC, is to be just a little bit paranoid and watching for all those things that could happen around the world that might reach out and affect a tribal citizen wherever they may be.
So looking ahead, what are some current projects the TEOC will be focusing on?
President Pearson, I kind of neglected. I think I could probably add it here or in the last question. We're actually monitoring the situation right now. There have been numerous earthquakes across the seas right now over in New Zealand, and you might be thinking, well, how did that affect us? Well, there is potential for tsunamis, and so we're monitoring that situation. We're looking at the notifications of tsunamis, and again, that's part of the power of the Tribal Emergency Operations Centers. We can then, if there is a threat like a tsunami, be able to communicate with those in our communities. So I wanted to mention that, as that's on my mind right now as we're continuing to watch that. Corey, do you want to go ahead and answer that question?
Yeah, it's data collection and dissemination is really a big part of a Tribal Emergency Operations Center. So we've got screens popped up all over with buoy information and ETA two-wave maps. So that's one of the things we do, is building up that as one of our projects. One of the most important things that we do is build and maintain those strong relationships with tribal leaders, community councils, and delegates, as well as municipal leaders and other partner agencies like Red Cross. It's pretty much paramount to any activity that we do. We're spending a lot of time and money on this regional communication system that'll provide real-time VHF over IP. So it'll be between tribal communities, VPSOs, TEOC, and the State Emergency Operations Center and the Coast Guard is really interested in this system and watching to see what ways that they can help us as we do this, because they know they'll benefit from it as well. And then, having assisted multiple communities in these emergencies with drinking water shortages, Tlingit Haida's Tribal Emergency Operations Center has purchased portable water purification systems. They can provide 2 gallons per minute of fresh drinking water from pretty much any fresh water source. And so having these on hand now, one of the things we're going to be doing is rolling those out to get them staged around Southeast Alaska and these tribal communities. And then, as I mentioned earlier, we're working with departments to create the emergency operations plans, and communities will be reaching out to complete those small community emergency response plans.
President Pearson, I think it's important to stress that in learning the travel emergency operations and responding to emergencies, the connections that we form with all our tribal leaders as well as other entities are paramount in our abilities to respond, not only to respond, but to respond quickly. Give an example of the water issue in the community of Angoon. We were able to communicate with the Coast Guard, who the information ran all the way up the chain to the Admiral. The Admiral of the Coast Guard quickly responded saying, yes, please go forth and help and assist. We were able to get the water to the community in an extremely good timeline. So I do want to stress that our building of strong relationships with all entities is paramount.
Great. So Tlingit Haida has been very proactive to safeguard the well-being of our staff, tribal citizens, and communities. A majority of our employees are still working from home, and our offices remain closed to the public. One of the big projects the TEOC has been involved in is ensuring that prevention and safety measures in the workplace are implemented as part of the tribe's return to work plan. Can you walk us through this return to work plan and its phases?
Corey, I'm going to let you go ahead and take that one, please.
Sure, absolutely. So we're addressing a matrix made of several factors to help us determine the safety of moving towards the new normal. The factors include vaccines given, positive tests, and emergency room respiratory visits. All those are indicators on kind of where we're at in the big picture. So we're currently in what we call level 1. Moving to level 2 will allow more individuals to work in the office, but with ongoing COVID-19 precautions. Level 3, we're calling our new normal. This will include new policies and procedures that will protect the workers, the workforce into the future from this and future virus threats.
The tribe respects the personal choice of our employees and has not mandated the vaccine. How does this factor into the return to work plan?
Thank you, President Pearson. We're kind of operating under the assumption that nobody's been vaccinated. The large number of vaccines given will provide an overview of risk and exposure. However, in the office, we will still act as though no one's been vaccinated. This helps us look at, right now, there's the continuation of washing our hands, wearing masks, keeping a minimum of 6 feet distance between people. These are all really important things that we will continue to do.
Great. So part of our return to work plan ensures that prevention and safety measures in the workplace are implemented. What kind of projects have been completed or are underway to increase the safety in our buildings?
Well, thank you, President Pearson. And again, Corey, just jump in, but really a lot of these improvements are intended to mitigate a lot of the risk and exposure related to COVID. Some of these improvements include air handlers, upgrades to no-touch faucets, soap dispensers, towel dispensers, and really limiting employee movement and gatherings within our buildings. As well as looking at the layouts in the office spaces that we currently have, how do we look at maximizing the number of people we can have in a facility but keep them safe.
Great. So Jason and Corey, as the two leads for our TEOC, can you provide our tribal citizens with a situational update on the coronavirus pandemic in Alaska and where we are at with the vaccine distribution in Alaska?
Go ahead, Corey.
Yeah, absolutely. So these are the numbers from this morning. Looking at COVID cases, the world, we're at 114.8 million. You compare that, the US is at 28.5 million and Alaska 56,605. So that kind of shows the spread of COVID cases being tracked. Hospitalizations in Alaska, a total of 1,285. So 23 are now currently in the hospital. Deaths are still very high. So it just shows us that we need to keep an eye on that. 2.5 million worldwide. We're fortunate in Alaska, 299. And we just need to do everything we can to keep that number low compared to the rest of the US at 500,000. So when we look at the upside are these vaccines and what we're doing with vaccinations. So worldwide, 276 million doses have been given of the various vaccines. That's 82.6 million in the US alone. And Alaska, we've given 263,900 doses. And fully vaccinated, which is what we really want to see, is that percentage getting that full immunity built up with the vaccinations. So full vaccinations worldwide is 58 million, US is 27 million, and Alaska, that's 106,000. So Alaska is at 15% fully vaccinated, the US is at 8%, and the world is at less than 1% fully vaccinated. So the protection levels that we want aren't there yet. We need to keep working towards that. So Alaska is a good example for everybody else to follow at 15% and growing. If I can talk about the vaccines, we have 3 now that are available: Pfizer, Moderna, and Johnson & Johnson. So those have all been approved. And Pfizer and Moderna have been shown to be effective against the new virus strains. And there are several other vaccines that are in clinical trials right now.
Great. Well, I just want to take this time to really commend our tribal health service providers. They have been instrumental in the rollout of the coronavirus vaccine and are a large part of the reason why Alaska is so far ahead of other states with the vaccine administration. Ganakshish Hawa to all of our tribal health service providers and dedicated healthcare workers. Jason, Corey, is there anything else you'd like to share with our tribal citizens?
Thank you, President Pearson. I really love to stress, I think that at least in the community, I'm not sure in our outlying communities right now, but there are many openings that I've been told. So what I mean by that is there are many openings for the vaccine. So if you know people that need the vaccine, people who haven't received the vaccine, people who don't think they're eligible for the vaccine, I really highly recommend they contact search or get on the website. There's a form to fill out on the website. Once you hit submit, that generates a phone call to you to set up that appointment. I would also look at, for those people, there's a lot of maybe non-native citizens that are friends and family that all can receive either through search or through the state. So looking at or through the city. So looking at Juneau, I know that the city also has a similar sign-up form where they can go to the CPJ website, get on there, fill out the form, and submit that. And again, that'll generate a phone call to schedule that appointment. We want to really get the information out as much as possible on the vaccines and getting everybody that wants to be vaccinated. The other message that Corey had mentioned was really we need to stay the course in being diligent in continuing to wear our masks while we're out in public, maintaining our distance, keeping our bubble small is a really big one as we start getting into spring and people are starting to want to get out and about and we want to be free and done with this. I'm with everybody on that. Everybody's tired of this, but we must be diligent in staying the course, keep that bubble small, washing hands on a consistent basis, wearing gloves and masks when appropriate, and I really strongly encourage people to look at getting the vaccine if you haven't already.
I appreciate that, Jason. I think it's also important to point out, here in Southeast, many of us are covered by search, but we have other communities not covered by search. Reach out to your local IHS provider, and I think they're all kind of following the same guidelines. So reach out to your local clinic, to like an Anchorage South Central Foundation. Ketchikan is the Ketchikan Indian Community Clinic, and wherever you are, if you're in the lower 48, try to find your local tribal provider and make sure you sign up and get on those lists, because the experience we've had here, for example, is they go down the list, and because when they start using the vaccines, it's time sensitive. They go very quickly through the list down to, so it may not always be the age that they're focused on, and you might get in sooner. So make sure you get on those lists. Thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate your information. Turning to Melinda. Melinda is the coordinator of our CARES Act financial assistance programs. Can you provide an overview of the two programs that have reopened?
Yes, the two programs provide a one-time financial assistance of $500 per program per household to tribal citizens impacted by COVID-19 pandemic to offset expenses for education, retraining, rent, mortgage, and utilities. The Family Education and Retraining Expenses Program is a one-time needs basis program that supports households with unexpected education-related expenses. The program was established to offset some of the expense households are facing due to homeschooling, retraining because of loss of employment, and new education requirements. Family Home and Utility Expense Program. This program was established to offset some of the expenses households are facing for rent, mortgage, and utilities.
Melinda, for those that applied and received assistance last year under the CARES Act financial assistance programs, can they reapply?
If they have received both the education and home grants, they would not qualify a second time. If they were approved for the home grant last year and want to apply for the education grant now, they could apply. Or if they were approved last year for the education grant and they wanted to apply for the home grant now, they could apply.
Great. Since reopening the CARES Act programs, how many applications have been received?
We have uploaded 442 applications. We are currently processing applications received on February 25th. There are still 128 applications in the CARES Relief email waiting to be uploaded and processed.
Great. How much time can tribal citizens expect the application processing time to take?
It can take anywhere from 7 to 14 days, depending on if they have a complete application with all supporting documents.
So for those tribal citizens who do not have access to the internet or a computer, how can they apply for the CARES Act financial assistance?
They can call the CARES phone number and request to have an application mailed to them, or we can complete it over the phone.
Great. Are there any helpful tips that you can provide to our tribal citizens who are applying for the CARES Act financial assistance programs to help reduce the amount of incomplete applications that are being received?
Yes, every section of the application is required to be filled out along with signatures, and all certifications are required to be marked. If you are applying for direct deposit, a voided check will help with that, along with all the boxes in the direct deposit need to be read and marked. The client setup form needs to be complete with a full social security number. And we call from a blocked private number. So please remember this tip in case we need to give you a call for additional information. If you are turning in an internet statement, we require all pages of the statement. Same with the lease agreement, we need all the pages.
Great, thank you. It's important for our tribal citizens to know that outside of the CARES Act financial assistance programs, We have several longstanding programs and services that are available to provide financial relief to tribal citizens and any Alaska Native or American Indian that reside in our service area. The temporary assistance for needy families, general assistance, and childcare programs are the essential programs we have in place to help our tribal citizens and families. We know there are many citizens in need that are not in our service area and eligible to apply for assistance through our programs. We encourage you to apply for our Karzak financial assistance programs if you've been impacted by the coronavirus pandemic, and also reach out to the tribe that is nearest to you, as many administer the same programs and provide services and should be able to assist all Alaska Natives and American Indians in their service area. If you don't know where to turn, please reach out to Tlingit Haida's program staff. They are here to help and can provide you with the resources you need. We'll now turn over for questions from our tribal citizens. We have from Harry Jackson Sr., out of curiosity, what kind of restrictions are on the money, how it is spent, local IRAs, for instance? Well, all of the restrictions are the same, so maybe Teresa can talk a little bit about what those restrictions are, but we're not going to address specific what other tribes are doing.
Well, I think that they update their guidelines so many times, but the general purpose of COVID CARES Act funding is to prepare the tribe to be able to respond, prevent, or prepare for the COVID-19 pandemic. And part of that includes being able to continue to provide services to our tribal citizens. And so, you know, we have to make sure that we are within the confines of that. And everything that we do with that money has to be due to COVID. And so with that framework, you know, we do have some flexibility, and we are allowed to prioritize our initiatives in that. And, you know, being able to provide services is initiative number one, because our tribal citizens depend on us to be operational and to make sure that we can still work with our citizens and the agencies and provide services and work our grants, things like that. And so there wasn't a whole lot of guidance at first, and you know, it was kind of tough to navigate that, and gradually they updated things outside of, you know, because they would get specific questions, and there was a lot of training provided in the beginning, and work groups and call sessions and things like that. So we reached out to any resources that we had to help us decide, you know, what would be allowable or not allowable. And sometimes, you know, it came from our legal department. Our auditors send out a lot of information as well. You know, one of the things that, because this is government money and it's federal money, it's going to be audited. And so we have to be able to justify every single thing that we've done with this funding and be able to demonstrate that we've spent it in accordance with the guidelines that we do have. And, you know, sometimes navigating 20 pages worth of FAQs from the government and being able to justify all those things. But priority number one is being able to still provide services and not have to shut down. And, you know, even though our physical offices and doors are closed, you know, we're still working with folks. We are still working with our partner agencies, our communities.
Great. From Gloria Eon, comparing percentage of populations, how do we compare to the USA overall as far as COVID-19 and vaccinated? Corey, I think you already answered that, but if you want to repeat that.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me get my numbers back up here. So I can tell you that in Alaska, we're at 15.5% are fully vaccinated compared to the entirety of the US, which is at 8.4% fully vaccinated. So those numbers are increasing very quickly. So especially with Pfizer ramping up production, and then now the Johnson & Johnson also rolling out. So we should see some more exponential growth on that. And then as we have other approved vaccines start to get released, then that'll help us even more. But we need to shoot for those high percentages in order to work towards that herd immunity. Something I did want to mention, though, that I remembered earlier is that even when you've had your second dose, you need to remember that that vaccination isn't going to work in you for 2 weeks. So you got to make sure that through the whole course of getting vaccinated, you are taking all of those precautions just like you haven't been vaccinated at all. It's very important.
Thanks for that, Corey. From Marvin Willard, I hear people talking about not getting vaccinated. How will this be handled? Will those people be discriminated by healthcare or businesses, et cetera? Well, Marvin, I can't speak for any of those other entities, but I can tell you at Tlingit Haida, we did not mandate the vaccine. We've strongly encouraged it. We've made sure that information is available. And we strongly encourage folks to talk to their healthcare provider and make a decision that you feel is best for yourself. But here at Tlingit Haida, you won't be discriminated against whether you get it or not. Okay, from Eileen Ostman, what if you can't upload paper info for the completion of application of assistance? Wanda?
We can complete that over the phone.
Okay. And from Veronica Marie, can you take a photo of the application and email that in?
Yes, definitely.
Okay. From Frank Saludo, are all local IRAs following T&H work from home, or is it up to the local IRAs? Well, Frank, all of the local IRAs are federally recognized tribes, so they totally decide for themselves what they do. And I think most of the tribes I've heard are working from home with some exceptions, but again, that's a total decision up to them. From Kinsey Martin, the financial help we receive, is that counted as income and reported to the IRS?
No, so the individual programs, the individual assistance programs are not reported to the IRS. The business grants are.
Okay, good to know. Thank you. Well, that concludes all of our questions. This week's door prize winners are Merle Hawkins. She won a Hydro Flask, and Nancy Moore Hotch won a David Boxley t-shirt. If you can message us your addresses, we'll get those out to you right away. So thank you all so much. And that concludes our lunchtime chat for today. I want to thank our sponsors, Sacred Grounds, Smokehouse Catering, Sacred Shine Auto Detailing, and Elizabeth Bradovich Hall. Wish you all a great day. Get out and enjoy the day if you can, and be well. We'll see you at our next lunchtime chat.